All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Study. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. And we will go around the room for introductions and then on screen. We'll start with Desiree.
Desiree Collins, SKATS staff.
Mike Chaffee, SKATS staff. Steve Dobernich, SKATS staff.
Kim Safinard, SKATS staff.
Ray Jackson, SKATS staff.
Kathy Clark, not SKAT staff. Mayor of City of Keizer and Chair.
Kevin Cameron would like to be SKATS staff.
Philip
County.
Delasini, City of Almsville.
Tammy Kunz, Keizer Community Diversity Engagement Committee.
Jacqueline Green, Northeast County Neighborhood Association.
Right, thank you. Let's go on to the screen. Councilor Phillips,
Trevor Phillips, Salem City Councilor.
Mayor Horning,
Steve Horning, Mayor of Turner.
Anna Henson,
Anna Henson, ODOT.
Director Carney,
Sadie Carney, Chariots Board.
and Mark Bernard. Mark Bernard.
Mark Bernard, ODOT Region 2 Principal Planner.
All right, is that everybody? Looks like, okay, let's go on then to our first order of business, which is approval of the policy committee meeting minutes from July 23rd, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections?
I'm sure I did not see any myself. I'll make a motion.
No.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from July 23rd.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 23rd, 2024. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no. There's no objection, motion passes unanimously. That will take us then to public comment. Any members of the public who would like to comment? Nope. All right, let's go on then to our funding shortfall policy language. Steve and Mike.
Okay, so I'll start us off and just share my screen. Maybe I can enlarge it a little bit more. But this is in the packet, agenda item D. There's a short memo. Oh, that's too much. Let's try this. So this is picking up on our conversation from earlier this summer about the funding shortfall policy and cleaning up the language a bit. So basically at the June meeting, when we last talked about this with this group, the policy committee directed staff to work on specifically the second sentence, which is kind of long and there's just a lot in there. So we had a conversation earlier this month with the technical advisory committee. We presented a couple different options that added a little bit of text, that deleted some text, and they gave us some feedback that basically just simplified the language here. So this is the current that I have on screen here highlighted. This is the current policy language, and this red section is essentially what we're proposing to delete for just improved readability, to make it a little more simple, but still felt like it covered the gist of the policy language that we wanted to have in there. So scrolling to the second page of the memo, this would be the proposed new policy language should the committee choose to adopt it. So it's make completing projects in the TIP a priority over adding new projects to the TIP. Commit to adding funds to projects as they are requested, as long as project sponsors have shown they've considered reasonable cost reduction options and a commitment to timely project delivery before requesting additional funding. So that's the focal point of the statement. We also included just some additional notes for context. And this essentially just mentions that the availability of these funds is contingent on the availability of SKATS discretionary funds. It mentions that we utilize our reserve funds, redistribution funds, or other unprogrammed federal dollars to draw these funds that are available. And then, if needed, we could potentially, delay other project phases as a means to make necessary funding available.
Thank you to the TAC for doing additional work on this. Any comments? Commissioner?
That's probably in the spirit of what we've been doing. Makes sense.
Director Carney?
Thank you, Chair Clark. I still find the second sentence to be rather long. I mean, it's over 30 words long. I wonder if we could consider breaking it into 2 sentences. So commit to adding funds to projects as they are requested, period. Project sponsors must demonstrate consideration of reasonable cost reduction options and commitment to timely project delivery before requesting additional funding.
Project sponsors.
What do y'all think?
I'd be fine with it. Trevor Phillips, Salem City Council. I'd be fine with that change. I think it is a long sentence, but it's either way, I think substantively it conveys the same message. Grammatically, I might be in favor of the suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm sure as somebody who got C's in English, I don't care. I know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I like the edit for readability.
Any clarification, Sadie, on the wording?
I got these in English.
Maybe I'll put it up on the screen real quick.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
You and Commissioner Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sadie, we're gonna attempt to put your wording on the screen, so we might need to circle back to you. Make
Sure, I put it in the chat if that makes it
Oh,
easier.
that helps. Yeah, that helps.
I'll
Thanks.
just pop up the chat real quick so we can see it. Okay. Commit to adding funds to projects as they are requested. Project sponsors must demonstrate consideration of reasonable cost reduction options and commitment to timely project delivery before requesting additional funding. Plus, you've also moved this into the active voice.
You noticed.
Something my teachers strongly encouraged. I won't say beat into me, but pretty damn close. All right.
Chair, I think when we talked about this, and Steve, correct me if my memory's wrong, but we talked about now that we have this policy, gone through a couple edits, when the next time someone does come in and ask for additional funding, there'd be some kind of form that would be filled out more specifically about how they're meeting this policy.
No, we didn't. I think we talked about that a little bit. We talked about maybe a not a specific form, but a write-up of some kind coming from the requester rather than SKATS staff. Well, I think we'd still work with them on what the requests look like, but putting more of the emphasis on the staff requesting the additional funds to come up with or fill out the I don't know, lack of better word, paperwork to make the request.
Well, yes, but we want to make sure that smaller jurisdictions who are notified that they need help, that's what you do. You help facilitate that. You've got the language, you've got the all those pieces that some jurisdictions may not have readily available, but to make that request, because I think what we're asking for is what we're already doing, is saying that I need this in order to do this phase. This cost has happened because of X, Y, or Z. And that's what we always ask for as a policy committee anyway, before we approve a additional funding. So I think it's already what we're doing.
I'm sure.
Commissioner?
Put that, something like that in additional notes. Staff will utilize reserve. Staff will do this, but staff will assist in. I mean, you do it already. I don't know why it needs to.
I just want to point out, that
It's going to be.
we have a policy. We have this kind of a policy. We want to make sure this policy is followed so that something's written to you, sent out in advance saying, this is why Marion County is requesting $500,000 more because, whatever cost increase was the reason. So it's in writing and says this is why.
And I think you've done that in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just continuing that. Yep.
So yeah, if we can add a note on the additional notes, staff will assist as needed. Then Commissioner, then I'll go to Dr. Carney.
Do you feel like you need that in there in the notes?
Just part of this discussion is fine.
Okay.
Just that, whoever's requesting the funds needs to provide some written explanation of why the funds are needed. So that you can, look at it before the meetings, you have a good feeling of why the funds are being requested.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to get to.
Dr. Carney?
Thank you, Chair Clark. We did talk about that, and I think it's a good idea. I think we also talked about helping project sponsors develop accurate cost estimates for their project work as it moves forward. And I don't know how that might play in to this whole thing, but I just wanted to go back to the proposed language. And I am a little concerned that our first sentence of make completing projects in the TIP a priority over adding new projects to the TIP just has the potential to strip a future policy committee from having the latitude to change with the times and kind of prioritize the projects that they see as necessary and relevant to development in our region. Because especially in times with limited resources, it seems like it could shackle, a future group trying to do this work to a set of ideals that maybe we hold, but perhaps they don't share. So I just wanted to bring that up to the group and see what people's thoughts were.
The policy committee has the latitude to make those determinations with each round of the TIP, so I don't see that this is going to shackle them to the past. We cannot commit future policy committees. This is a recommendation for them to understand that that has been the practice of this committee for the deliverability, consistent deliverability of projects. But if there is a project that needs to be replaced for one reason or another, the policy committee still has that latitude.
So would it make sense to remove that sentence in light of your?
No, because then it's not a policy anymore. In my opinion, this is important to make this, completing projects. There's an obligation that's already been undertaken by putting a project into the TIP. It's coming from the applicant government. And we have made it a policy and a practice to complete projects. It is a very rare day that we've had to stop because something's gone completely sideways. I can't think of one actually, except for.
No more nightmares.
Oh, God. I want my interchange instead. Okay, anything else?
I'll just share because it took me a few minutes to format it out of I was struggling with the copy and paste. So I'll just put it up as fully, let's see. There we go. So that's the updated proposal with the edits.
I'm good. Motion to adopt.
Yeah,
Oh, Mayor Horning has a hand raised.
I just, we talked about this for a little over an hour in June, and it looks like we're changing one sentence. I make a motion, we approve the amendment, adding the extra period in the sentence.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded to adopt this SKATS funding shortfall policy as presented on the screen. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by, Director Carney?
That's okay. I would just say, I'm not sure I understand why it wouldn't be a policy without the first sentence, because it is still a commitment. And just that first sentence does make me a little uncomfortable.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed, signify by saying no.
No.
Okay, motion passes. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I think Anna doesn't vote, correct, or does she?
No, she votes.
Okay,
You can abstain, but
okay, so it's 5-1, correct? We have Anna, Steve, me, Kevin. 4.
Anna.
just re-enter. Did Anna vote? I'm sorry, did Anna vote?
I don't know.
Anna, did you vote yes or abstain? Or no? I know you didn't vote no.
Anyways, I have 1 no.
Audio is reconnecting.
Okay. We want it to be accurate on the record, and Trevor. So 1, 2,
You can put a
3,
vote
4.
in the chat. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Ask her again.
Anna, did you cast a vote on the adopting this language?
I got kicked off, sorry. I vote yes on the proposed language with Sadie's, extra making that 2 sentences. I'm good with that. Thank you.
All right, motion passes 5-1. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item E, which is federal fiscal year 2732 MTIP public engagement framework. Steve.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again and skip down to the memo as part of attachment or agenda item E. Okay, so this is a high-ish level overview of our plans to work on the engagement aspects of the upcoming MTIP document. And actually, Kim and I were working on some more of the details this morning as far as some specific dates for some of the early outreach that we're proposing. But this will give an idea of what the overall approach is and what activities we're planning to do as we roll out the application process, as we look at the evaluation criteria, and then eventually in the future adopt our MTIP document. So yeah, I'll skip. There's just a little bit of background here at the top and a bit of context in the memo, which talks about why public participation is important and points out that this gives us an opportunity to hear concerns, suggestions, and learn more about projects that we may not be aware of and get the public's input on them. So our public participation plan as an MPO is sort of the overall guidance that we use, and then we develop a MTIP specific participation process, which this document serves as. Our last update to the public participation plan was in November of 2021. And the next section down is a listing of potential public engagement activities that we could use as part of the process. And I think a lot of them are pretty standard in terms of our email mailing lists, our physical mailing lists, graphic and visualizations to communicate with the public, and then gets to some of the more specifics about our required 30-day public review period when the full document is actually drafted, a public hearing that we're anticipating to hold in May of 2026 to adopt the final document. So the majority of I think the more meaningful or specific aspects of this memo kind of starts at the bottom of page 2, and it outlines the outreach process in 5 different stages. So the first one is a kickoff stage, which is sort of an extended kickoff, which starts with our announcement in early October that we have applications available for funding, and jurisdictions can begin to apply for funding. During this period, we're also going to solicit input from the public on the overall direction of the MTIP. Specifically, some of the priority areas of what they would like to see, not at a project level input there, but it would be what would they like to see projects accomplish? When we talked about this with the TAC earlier this month, we had laid this out a little bit differently, and one of their suggestions was to start with some high-level priority-oriented outreach early in the process. So we built that into this plan here. The next stage would be to post our project proposals on the SKATS website and through an interactive comment map. We would, our rough plan right now is when we initially, in February, end of February of 2025, when we received all the applications, we post the applications themselves so that they're available, but we wouldn't do our push for public input until a little bit later, once the TAC has had a chance to score and review and give their feedback on the applications that are presented. So that's what stage 2 would entail, and that would be roughly from April through July of 2025. From there, we're shifting into the development of the document itself, and this would be from August of next summer, so about a year from now, until February of 2026. This would be the process during which staff would develop the actual chapters and content of the document, and have discussions with both the TAC and PC as those come together. From there, the draft review phase would be our 30-day public comment requirement on the MTIP and the air quality conformity determination. And that would be in March of 2026. And then we built in time an extra month between that review phase and then our adoption in May, so that we can have discussion with the TAC and the policy committee in April about the feedback that we've received during that phase, and then bring it for adoption during a public hearing in May. So we have a breakdown of the timeline down here, looking at some of the outreach beginning this fall in Q4 of 2024, and then really continuing throughout the process, and ending with the adoption in May of 2026. So I'm gonna stop there, and I can well, I'll stop sharing for now for questions, but I can pull this back up and go back to sections as needed.
Okay. Thank you very much. So this is an overall about 18-ish month process from the time we release the letter to adoption.
Yep, that's right.
18 months. Okay, thank you. Any comments on this outline? And we'll be seeing the letter before it goes out in October. Director Carney.
Thank you, Chair Clark. I'm always going to have comments on community engagement. I really love the additional or the suggestion of the TAC for sort of soliciting general sentiment and input, but I'm curious how will we be collecting that information, or how will the COG be collecting that information? And then how do we evaluate it and use it vis-a-vis project applications?
Yeah, so as far as onto the first question first, we're planning to do a survey and likely would do that in November, maybe into December, but we would do an outreach survey through our mailing lists and potentially through other community engagement stakeholders that we can reach. And then we haven't really gotten into the details what the survey is what our questions are gonna be yet, but I would kind of assume it'll be kind of a range of priority-oriented questions that are really getting at like what are the underlying values that folks want to see come out of the MTIP document, So we would develop a summary memo to share with the TAC and the policy committee. And then our plan would be to come back after some initial conversations with the TAC and PC in November. We'd come back in January with the results of those initial conversations as well as the public outreach and be able to finalize the evaluation criteria.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then also in the kickoff phase, let's see if I go to it in my packet here, in the table, that seems like the place that we would host that kind of pre-application process that we discussed in our last meeting. That seems separate from a community engagement effort, but am I right that that is where it would fall? And are we intending to do anything like that for the project applicants to help them both understand the application process and potentially better or more accurately estimate the cost of a project so that we don't have those funding differences?
Yeah, so I haven't done any more thinking about that. And I would agree, it's a little bit separate from the public outreach, but I think the correct timing would be October, November to have those conversations, and they may just be by request. You know, if certain applicants want to have those conversations, others may not. But we could either have a defined time that we set aside for that or set up individual meetings with jurisdictions to get a sense of what they're applying for and what their questions are. But you know, also, I think that's kind of the general purpose of the pre-application process overall, is to submit your thoughts about a project and then get some feedback about what the how it might rank or compare to other projects.
Great. And then I know that you probably know this, but the people who comment on like MTIP surveys, it's a pretty limited audience. And that's not to say the feedback isn't valuable, but if we want to better understand the needs of the community, it would be very helpful to perhaps target some of that outreach through community-based organizations or to kind of our marginalized, underrepresented, underserved populations to help get a sense for what more broadly constitutes community need versus just sending out a survey and having people like me answer it. I certainly don't reflect all of those communities, and I think it would be hard for us to project. I think it'd be useful to hear from them directly if we can find a way of making that happen.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's right here, and several of them outreach to community and neighborhood groups for speaking opportunities for that person to person. And it's in there in a couple different places, but I would agree that in-person, especially at broadly, broad neighborhood groups.
Yeah.
Even some neighbors associations are more engaged than others.
Yeah, I think we had some success during the last TIP process with not neighborhood associations, but some community groups and did some direct outreach where we visited them in person. So we can start that early. And I was thinking about earlier today about reaching them for the April timeframe when we'll be actually asking for input on the projects, but it could make sense to do that for the survey portion in the fall as well. And we have a little bit of time to plan around that, but yeah, I agree. It's a survey like this from an MPO within a COG. It takes some filtering to get to folks. But at the same time, I think we have a really good, thanks to the safety plan, we have a growing reach in terms of when we send out email blasts who we're reaching, but yeah.
And I tell you, we do appreciate when like the Salem connections can be used as something that goes out to, many people. And it includes a link to our surveys or our information, so they can click on it and they can get to that kind of survey. We reach a lot more people. And if we could do it in Keizer and Marion County, all the
We
better.
do it 3 times a year newsletter.
Okay.
I'm not sure when the next one's going out. We can, if you talk to John in our communications at our board's office.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I,
Counselor Phillips.
yeah, thank you. I just, I can't recall if in past, staff from SKATS, and I don't want to like create more work for you guys, but you just have the opportunity to probably come do like an information report, at city council, in terms of like, getting it to a broader audience potentially.
No, we're happy to offer free airtime too.
Yep.
Free top of the meeting, not buried at the end.
We can look into it.
Yeah.
Plus you don't have to stay for the whole thing. Okay. Any other feedback?
Madam Chair. Would this be an opportunity for the neighborhood associations and the neighborhood family councils for Salem and Keizer to collaborate and put on a community cafe? So that they can present to not only CBEL, but to the neighborhood associations as well as the neighborhood family councils.
Yeah,
And anybody who would want to show up, because we advertise it for everybody.
Yeah, the neighborhood family councils aren't necessarily listed yet, but they're growing rapidly. And they're fantastic because you're getting a different demographic than the usual suspects.
How is a family council different than a neighborhood association?
They're a completely different organization. The neighborhood family councils are based around elementary school boundaries, and they engage the school, the families, the neighborhoods in a variety of functions, especially for building collaboration and community support for the students.
We do a lot of community outreach, and I can leave you a brochure.
Neighbors and or the I'm sorry,
Keizer United.
Keizer United.
Keizer United as well.
But SKATS United is a community progress team, and there are several of those, but the neighborhood family councils are through CBEL, the Community Business Education Leaders. And they are growing. We are in the process of forming one at Cummings. There's already
We have Holman Elementary, we have Kennedy Elementary, we have Highland Elementary. We just did a presentation for Washington last night. They've already got most of their council picked. We finalized them on the 24th of September.
So, and there's probably more coming. So
We've got Legal coming on next. And then what else?
so these are fantastic for reaching, a community, neighborhood-based demographic. You're going to engage families in a way that you're probably not going to reach otherwise. So it's just a thought there, and it's been really exciting to watch these take off. Director Carney?
Thank you, Chair Clark. I'm so inspired by this neighborhood family councils, because I was thinking along the same. I was like, I wonder if I could get this information out through my kids' school, because I read what comes home from school and I know what my kids' class picture looks like for in-district residents, and it's not at all what my neighborhood association meetings look like. And that difference, I really noticed it after my kids got into school, who's really living in our neighborhood. So I think that's such a fruitful possibility. And I wonder if there is a way to work with the schools just to get out that kind of like sentiment survey, if they would be willing partners. I know they already have an awful lot on their plates, so it might not be possible, but I love this neighborhood family councils idea. It sounds really amazing and inspiring. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Yeah, I think those would be more organic. It's very, very difficult to get things out through the school official notifications, but working through the neighborhood family councils, I think there's an opportunity. So I'll let you guys continue to work together offline. Anything further? All right, thank you for all the good input. Let's go on then to item F, which is the federal performance measure midpoint review by Mr. Ray.
So just to change it up, I'll actually use PowerPoint. Material.
Okay.
As a reminder, you know, there are federal performance measures and we've talked about these since 2018. And last time in 2022, we set targets, or you guys accepted targets that were set by Transit District and ODOT for a variety of performance measures. And also at that time, we had two new performance measures that applied to SKATS, and we needed to develop SKATS specific targets. So at that time, we created targets for 2024 and 2026. And going forward, the midpoint of the 2022 to 2026 performance reporting period, where we can review the targets and decide if the 2026 targets should be modified. As this was, ODOT informed us recently that they have looked at their targets that they set and are not going to modify any of them for the reporting period. And we have, as a reminder, the two performance measures are the annual peak hour excessive delay per capita and the percent of non-single occupant vehicle travel. Two well-worded performance measures that are clear to everyone who on the street knows what these are. But we set, or you all set, targets for 7 hours for the annual peak hour excessive delay for 2024 and 2026, and then slightly decreasing percent for the percent of non-single occupant vehicle travel for 2026.
Press pause on that.
Okay, I need a breather after a saying all that, sure.
Okay. On the second one, I'm confused. So percent of, it sounds like a not.
It's percent of people who aren't driving themselves.
And nobody else in the car.
Yeah. So this is the people who are walking, biking, taking transit, or working from home, or carpooling.
Or carpooling, so the second person in the car,
The second person. So as long as there's
another human being in the
another
car.
human being,
During peak period.
age doesn't matter.
During peak period.
Only,
Well, this is, actually, for that one, I believe it's just for community work. It's whatever the census gives us for, and I believe it's just community work. So peak period essentially, yeah.
and it's only commuting to an occupation, not to other activities.
I believe that's how the census clarify, ask this.
It's clarify, okay,
Yeah.
commute to employment.
How did you commute to work during, yeah,
So all the other stuff, they're not
they
counted.
don't count, they don't, yeah. So they don't ask people, how do you go to, when did you go shopping, or did you go to shopping by transit or whatever? Our household survey will ask that, but the census just looks at commuting to work.
Okay, well, it's, yeah, we can't get that data because if they don't collect it, we're not gonna get it. Okay, and so and then Councilor Phillips, I'll come to you. And the anticipation is that that is going to continue to decline.
Well, the target was, because when we made the target in 2022, there's the data lag. So, and we just had a COVID, so everyone's working from home. So it's like, this is a big number, but for 2020, this is, it was more in line with the smaller, lower 20s.
Gotcha, okay.
So
This is going to the before times.
yeah, we're looking at, and we're trying to look forward to what's going to happen and take into consideration the projects that are in the TIP that are being funded and programs that are already out there, the transit service and whatnot. And so we're just making a guess as to what the numbers will be.
Okay. Councilor Phillips?
Thank you, Chair. So, I mean, if I could paraphrase to get more clarity, a lower number for the annual peak hour excessive delay per capita is probably better. And then for the percent of non-single occupant vehicle travel, it seems like, if we want to reduce congestion and or decrease, the amount of, fossil fuels being used, a bigger number might be better. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just that in between 2020 and 2022, there was still a change due to the circumstance of the pandemic.
Correct. And
Okay.
so and so we'll have, and there's also a lag in when we have the data. So
Okay.
on the next slide, and also in your packet, these are the actual numbers, and you can see starting with the single occupant vehicle, non-single occupant, the carpooling and people who are working from home. We don't have the census data for 2023 yet, so we don't actually know where it is. And we see that, so the annual peak hour, which is one of the important things because we need to make a target now for it. The peak hour excessive delay, we know that instantly because that's the big data that I occasionally come and talk about from INRIX that is calculated. And so it's, in 2024, January through May, it was 2.8 hours. So if you continue that trend, we should be under 7 hours by a healthy margin by the end of December. And so we'll have met the target. In 2023, it was 6.1 hours. And so we were under 7, so we met that target as well. So, recommendation was, is not to change either of the targets for 2026. And in 2026, sometime before August, we will talk about this again and set new targets for everything for the next reporting period, 2026 to 2030. So that's it.
Director Carney?
Thank you, Chair Clark. Maybe I just read the memo too quickly. What are we setting the targets for? Like, what is the purpose?
The purpose is the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration require MPOs, transit districts, and DOTs to set targets for performance measures either every 4 years, or those that are 4 years, and or yearly. And this is based on direction. Let's see, map 21, I believe it was, where the Congress set a number of national goals, and the Federal Highway and Federal Transit set the performance measures to track progress in meeting the national goals.
And what are the goals kind of pointing us toward?
Well, there's a variety of goals. So some of the performance measures, so the ones that we didn't talk about, safety, bridge, and pavement are, dealing with road safety, transit, safety on transit vehicles. State of good repair is a big concern for Federal Highway and Federal Transit. So the pavement quality on the interstate and national highway system, bridge deck on the national highway system and interstate, the quality of that. And then the performance of the national highway system, including the interstate, includes the ones that the peak hour excessive delay and percent of non-single occupant vehicle travel are included in the system performance set of to address the system performance goal.
So is it kind of like getting your blood drawn at the doctor, and then you
Yes.
see what it says, and if there's any problems, then maybe you look at it, but this is just kind of like the blood, like we just want to get a general sense throughout the system of like the health of our system.
Right, and
And these
so
are the met- okay.
we look at the baseline and that tells us where we are, and then we look at our projects in the tip and some other considerations, and we think, okay, the congestion will be this, or the bridge quality, the pavement quality will decline by X%. So we're going to set a target of whatever, 7 hours. And then hopefully we can meet that, and then every 4 years, you look at it again and take that into consideration with the projects that are in programs that you are funding. And then you just move along, and hopefully it shows progress that we are either maintaining the system, making sure that people can get around safely, and reducing congestion, air quality issues, et cetera.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So the action is to direct staff, i.e. Ray, to tell ODOT what you would like, whether or not the targets are going to change for 2026.
All right. We need a motion to direct staff to proceed with the current targets as listed.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Cameron, seconded by Mayor Horning. Any further discussion? Director Carney.
Thank you, Chair Clark. I'd like to revisit Counselor Phillips' question about the percent of non-single occupant vehicle travel and the idea that we're setting targets that are lower and lower when we think what we need is numbers that are higher and higher. Is there a reason we wouldn't adjust our target for 2026 to at least be our baseline?
It would, we set the targets, we could set the targets to the baseline. Like I mentioned, that we don't, the information that's available only goes to 2022, so we don't have a good idea of how carpooling and work from home has changed since then. And it's also the projects and programs that we've implemented probably aren't materially changing that. The big driver in the percent, the higher value for the percent for non-OSOB might be work from home. That has been decreasing since COVID, since 22, and definitely in 23 and 4. So there are no penalties for missing a target or for and there's no reward for making the target.
Mm-hmm.
So it's informational only.
At this point, yeah. The feds might change that in the future, but at this point, yeah. They hold MPOs harmless. DOTs, for some of their targets, they do not.
Okay. Anything further?
No, I was just trying to do the math to see how many more years before we got to 0 if we decrease it, from 25.2 to 22.7 over 4 years. How long does it take before we don't need to have any?
I think it's going the other way. So I think that projects, changes in employment and so forth will be tracking for people not traveling alone. And see if there's more carpooling or alternatives that are working for folks as measuring that performance of the system as a whole. So I think 23 data is going to be really interesting because that's the first full year of, well, kind of past pandemic, kind of. Counselor Phillips?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that since there's neither penalties nor some kind of benefit to getting the numbers right, um, I would prefer to some way to like keep it as high as possible. But it's hard for me really to, make any recommendation beyond staff recommendation without more perspective. And I just don't know what it was before the pandemic. I mean, I understand there's a lag in the data and we don't yet have 2023. But I don't know, like, I don't have a sense of what we would expect, before the pandemic, and then what kind of impact, economic situations have on this. So, I'm okay with staff recommendation. But I mean, aspirationally, I would like those numbers not to be getting smaller in terms of the not just one person in a vehicle. But I'm still prepared to vote yes for staff recommendation.
And I think for the record, that's something that we are looking at as we put together our projects on how we can make our system have better options for people to have well-functioning choices. Anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Great discussion. Let's go to item G, amendments to the SKATS federal fiscal year 24-29 MTIP.
Okay.
Back to Steve.
Yes, thank you. There's two amendments. I have the first one on screen here, which is amendment 24-20. And this is a project that was funded by the All Roads Transportation Safety Program, which is an ODOT program that uses federal highway safety improvement funds. Within that specific bucket of funding for that program, there's been a request to cancel the project so that money can be used for other priority projects, I assume in Region 2. This particular project was a cost of about $450,000, and it was to make some intersections safety improvements like signage, striping. And so the request today is coming from ODOT to cancel this project and take it out of the TIP. I will say that I got a comment from the public, a member of the Planning Commission from City of Keizer, and essentially just asking, why is this being canceled? And in process of looking into it a little bit more, I did uncover a longer description than what I originally got from the TIP system, but there was a note that said that the program's going to look to address the scope of this project with what they're calling highway safety engineering quick fix funding. So my understanding is it's not a project that's going to completely fall off the priority list for ODOT, but it would come out of the TIP at this point with the cancellation. So that's the first amendment. And then the second one.
And then I want to make sure we, because that wasn't in our packet, the memo from
yeah, the public comment.
Avisham.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was in one of the versions of the packet that went out, and then I think it didn't make it in the final. And so apologize for that.
Well, I'll just make sure it makes it into the record for the minutes. And I appreciate that question because it made me feel a whole lot better about this than the original. Well, we're just going to cancel it. It's a safety project, but that is these elements will be absorbed into another programmatic area.
That's my understanding, is it's something that they're going to look for other ways to fund it, either through arts or through another program potentially. But
They still need done, just find a different color of money.
yes.
I feel better. Okay.
Okay, so the next amendment is to add a project. This is to add surface transportation block grant funding, which will be the transfer to FTA for delivery. And this is for ODOT transit section, which year to year has a line item in our TIP for organized public transit work that they're doing. So they have a line item through federal fiscal year 2024. This is to add one for 2025. And it would be a $1.4 million project. And it's defined pretty broadly, so I don't know the specifics of what they will be planning. But part of the description is projects and programs to be determined based on funding requirements. So it's open. But I will say that this is for the last 4 to 5 years, this has been a line item for the public transit division that they've increasingly had funds for urbanized transit projects.
I saw Shofi's on here. Is there someone who can give an example of a project that got done under the current one? So that's why I get a sense of what this is about.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please? Sorry, I feel like I missed it at the first part.
So I'm looking for an example of what these funds have been used for in the current fiscal year. So I get a sense of what this is being earmarked for future years.
Yeah, so I don't see the screenshot. So is it for the transportation options funding?
No, it's not. And I'll kind of.
Can you share the screen, please? I see all of you guys, not the screen.
Yeah, and so I guess one note to add, it's these funds are being managed by the public transit division. So I don't know that Chariots would have the information about this particular, typically all our transit funding is, or most goes to Chariots, but in this case, it's an ODOT transit project. And so that question would have to come from ODOT staff and probably likely from the public transportation division. So
yeah, I concur. So this project doesn't ring a bell, especially the transportation network piece. Thank you, Steve.
So Chair, and I don't know if Mark Bernard wants to also chime in on this, but just like MPO areas get 5307 funds and other kind of Federal Transit Administration funds, the state as an entity gets FTA funds. But
Yeah, I can just say.
They distribute those
generally-
funds.
Oh, sorry.
Process. This is they distribute those funds, and this is the part of the process for distributing those funds. Go ahead, Mark.
I thought you were done. Thanks. Mike. Hey, Jofi, I used to be the regional transit coordinator for Chariots before I moved over to Highway Division. And these are the sorts of funds that ODOT Public Transportation Division requests from FTA. It can be, if it's urbanized, it's going to be either Section 5310, or it could be Section 5307 that ODOT Public Transportation Division just touches, and it goes straight to Chariots for programming. But those are the two flavors of urbanized public transportation funds that are passed through the state from FTA to Chariots. Hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, so we've got resolution 24-20.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll move amendment number 2420, Northwest Oregon Lighting and Advance intersection warning, cancel the project.
That's okay. So that's
Second.
resolution 2421 or 2420.
Yeah.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Cameron, seconded by Councilor Phillips. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. For the record, Anna Hansen didn't have to leave the meeting, so we're down to the 5 of us, for voting. Next up is a resolution 24-21.
Madam Chair, I'll move amendment, number 2421, Oregon Transportation Network for SAM-TD FY 25
Second.
new projects.
Resolution 24-21 has been moved by Commissioner Cameron, seconded by Councilor Phillips. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. I count 5 ayes. Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you, and thank you for the question. Oh, you know what? I do have the packet that has Planning Commissioner Avashan's email in it. I just haven't gone far enough to see it again. Thank you. I have the right packet. After all. All right, then let's look at the Transportation Safety Action Plan. Item
Yep.
H.
Give me a second, I'll get my slides up as well. Okay, so we've been working on the safety plan since the beginning of 2023. And I'm going to talk about public comments that we received at the beginning of the planning process and these ones at the end of the planning process here in August. So in spring 2023, we did an extensive outreach effort to the public to ask them about their transportation safety concerns and priorities. And then we spent the time here in 23 and 24 developing the plan. And now we have a draft plan that's out for public review. So we're doing a second round of public outreach to see what people think about the draft plan. So I'm going to go over both of those public outreach efforts and results. So in spring of 2023, we did, like I said, an extensive open house, probably the biggest ones I've been involved in here in SKATS. 30,000 postcards with oversampling to low-income and minority neighborhoods, newspaper stories and ads, social media, radio interviews, et cetera, et cetera. We had 796 people respond, which is a pretty good number for a survey. And we also had an online map where we got over 1,100 comments on specific locations where people wanted to discuss a safety issue at that location. So some of the results of that first survey were asking people, you know, what of the focus areas that we gave them 8 choices, what's the most important one to you? And choose 4. So they chose 4, and after compiling all the data, these were the top 4 concerns by that group, our survey group, of, they said, close to 800 people: safety at intersections, speeding, safety while walking or rolling, that could be wheelchair or it could be on bike, and distracted driving. Now I have reports about both this 2023 survey in the packet and also the August survey as well. So you can delve into the details at your leisure. We asked some questions about how safe or unsafe they feel currently about traveling. So driving, most of the people say they feel safe. 66% said they feel safe. Transit, 30% say they feel safe compared to 7% saying unsafe, but then 53% say they don't use transit. Then all the ones below the line are ones where they're feeling unsafe more than safe. So walking and rolling, they're feeling more unsafe. Riding a bicycle, traveling through an intersection, unsafe. Crossing a busy intersection, whether they're biking or rolling or walking, 65% feel unsafe doing that. And then on a motorcycle, about 5% say safe, 11% say safe, and then 70% say they don't use motorcycles. So that kind of gives you the breakdown of how people are feeling just traveling, of those 800 people that we got responses to. Some of the other questions were when thinking about safety, what potential strategies should be prioritized? So this is before the plan, just what do you think should be done to increase safety? And these are the 4 answers people gave. provide more sidewalks where they're missing, more enhanced crossings, make intersections safe for everyone, and provide more bicycle lanes or separated bike paths. You can look at the results for the other choices, but those were the top 4 people chose as strategies. Remember, this is before the plan. Then we had some open-ended questions. Do you have anything else to add? And people had a lot to add. So it was almost 300 people answered that question. There was a wide range of topics. There's a separate appendix report that we drafted that categorized all those responses, and it's in your packet. About half the comments were about unsafe behaviors. So speeding, red light running, reckless driving, not yielding pedestrians. And then also on the flip side, pedestrians and bicyclists not following traffic laws. They talked a lot about enforcement, quite a bit of comments about enforcement, a little bit about education, both for drivers and also pedestrians and bicyclists. Then I would say the other half was asking, as far as a response to this question, a desire for better infrastructure. So both better planning and design of our streets, of our communities, to reduce speeding and to improve safety for walking and biking. Now, there's a lot more information in the packet, but that's kind of the high level responses we got for that question. And then as a final kind of question, we asked people to share stories of a time where they didn't feel safe driving, or what is a particular safety issue they want to talk about. So again, we had over 200 people share stories. Once again, sometimes they were short, sometimes they were very, very long about what they were. We categorized all these stories into kind of groups, and tell you there was many stories about speeding. Again, speeding is always the first thing I always hear when people talk about safety, but about crashes or near crashes or almost being hit, drivers not obeying traffic signals, blasting through yellows and red lights or stop signs. And then a lot just not yielding to bikes and peds. And as you know, we have an issue about pedestrians, fatalities and injuries. Something happened yesterday. Well, that's what was trained, but things are happening all through the year. And it seems like this year is worse than ever. So we have a lot of pedestrians.
Like on the train?
I haven't got all the details. I heard about it last night. So the newspaper, Statesman Journal, had a short article about it. So I found reading these stories quite enlightening. I encourage you to try to read through some of these stories. We didn't produce everything in the packet because that would be quite long, but we produced, the packet has an appendix that has examples of safety stories from basically all of these categories. And we're putting some of these stories in the plan so people can hear what the public is saying about how they feel safe or unsafe traveling. Here's like 3 examples of the kind of safety stories we heard. And I highlighted just some words so I can quickly characterize this, but people are just saying Salem has the worst drivers anywhere. Or cars do not stop for protected pedestrian crosswalks. Cars do not stop for protected pedestrian crosswalks for bikers, and only stop if I get myself in the crosswalk itself. Or just walking home from school and trying to be in the middle of the road of Center and 14th. Cars aren't waiting for you, cars can't see you, and you are at the mercy of drivers. She's scared for her nephew at that same crosswalk. So you're hearing quite personal stories about people, what they feel, why they feel unsafe, or locations they feel unsafe. So I have all that information, and I'm happy to share it with you. And we're going to post that on the safety plan website. We had a comment map as well. So people put in 1,100 comments all over the region. We asked them to put their comment in, and they categorize it, whether it's a walking or driving issue. And you can see the biggest one was comments about unsafe walking conditions, but a lot of the driving ones had to do with speeding once again, or people running red lights or not obeying traffic signals, biking as well. So that was part of the development of the plan. Of course, a lot of the other development was coming up with analyzing the crash data, coming up with our goal for the plan, And we had a steering committee, which several members of the policy committee participated in. Coming up, and then the main part is probably coming up with the strategies. So we worked with your staffs to look at all the strategies that are currently in use and which ones we want to keep using and prioritize for the future. And then we came up with the plan. You'll see it next month. The plan has some performance measures and performance measures for tracking how we're doing over time, specific to safety. So we have this draft out. We put it on an open house website, and our consultant helped us advertise it. We advertised it too. We had everyone who answered the first survey and gave us emails. We sent this information to them to look at the final plan. We used other social media. We used our mailing lists. So we did a lot to advertise this plan. Not quite the level to the first plan, but really is to get feedback on this plan. What you're seeing now is a few screenshots of the open house, which talked about the focus areas, talked about the goals of the plan. And then it's kind of maybe a little hard to see, but we had this rolling list of our 16 priority strategies and what they are. And finally, at the end, we kind of asked them based on that. It's kind of limited information, but people don't want to see too much in open house. They want to get right to it. We asked them, are we on the right track? And of the 86 people that responded, yet 67 or 78% said yes, 13% said no, and 9% had no response. So overwhelmingly, they thought it's on the right track. They did the second circle here is if you have more to tell us, please elaborate. Once again, we got some short comments, but we got comments that went on and on, quite lengthy. And before the meeting, I was looking at these again and kind of picking out a few examples of kind of comments we got. So once again, people were responding to the specific issue. They're saying safety is still a problem, or people are not yielding to bikes and peds. But regarding the plan itself, the majority of those comments had positive comments about the plan, saying it's on the right track. They appreciate the increased attention to safety by our area. They still are maybe a little skeptical about some of the strategies. They say nothing will be any good unless there's enforcement, meaning more patrol. In the first survey, there's a lot of things on enforcement and wishing to have more enforcement, whether it's police officers on patrol or some automated enforcement with cameras. So I think the study is a step in the right direction, but action is needed now. More about more slow speeds and, doing more because we don't have resources for traffic enforcement. Include bicycles in LPIs, which are leading pedestrian intervals, which the city has started implementing downtown. And more about sidewalks, build more sidewalks. They provide safety for people. So on and on, lots of comments, and we'll have all that posted on the. So just to wrap up, our next steps are we have a draft plan. We keep making improvements to it. We're going to have a joint meeting of our steering committee and our project management team, who have been meeting separately to develop the plan. We're having a joint meeting of both groups on the 5th to review the draft, see if there's anything that needs clarification or improvement. We'll make those changes we can for the final plan, and then put it in our agenda packet for next month, where our consultant will be here. We'll do a presentation on the plan and seek for your review. And if you like it, we can adopt it. So that's my presentation. Is there any questions or feedback?
Councilor Phillips?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike. This is great. I guess my question is on the 5th, is that the steering committee members are invited, and what time of day is that?
Yes, steering committee, we sent out invitations a couple of times. And I think you accepted in the past, so. It should be
Great,
on
I'm glad I did.
your
What
calendar.
time is it at?
What time is it again?
2 to 3:30.
2 to 3:30.
Okay, thank you. I'm free that day, so.
Good.
Yeah.
I've got a question, it's on page 58 of the packet, page 17 of the outreach summary.
Get that out here. Where did it-
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, okay. Page 15.
Page 17 of the
First report.
report as page 58 of our SKATS packet.
17 of the report. Is it with the graphics?
Yes.
Okay.
And the question from the survey was, what was your total household income last year before taxes, to get a sense of the folks who answered the question? The vast majority being, but the largest group being 100,000 or more. My question is, can the data about the median income for Keizer, Salem, and Marion County be included in the final report for a benchmark or a
Right.
plumb line?
I don't see why not. Look that up.
Okay, I know it's available, so I just think it would be helpful.
I think the median income is more in the 40 to 50,000. If I were to guess. Median cost of income, like 50,000.
That was 63. Anyway, the household median income, so I'm looking
Obviously, the 100,000 is higher.
a little bit. But I think it's helpful just to give some context for the response and also the level of interest or people who engage. But I was pleased to see that we had people with less than 40,000 also responding. Instead of just blowing it off, well, yeah. Nobody cares, but it's interesting that 20% just said, I'm skipping this question.
Right.
Yeah, income is starting, now you're getting personal. Gender, education, yeah, sure, share. Income,
Well, as an incentive, we first of all, we oversampled to try to get more people of lower income to at least be aware of the survey.
70,000.
And then we did have some incentives of a drawing for gift cards, so.
That's all right. Thank you, Sadie. Marion County, 2022 median household income of 70,000, almost 71,000.
Okay.
So, okay, so that puts it right in there. Pretty good. That's higher than I thought.
You do, yeah. Smaller.
Okay. Okay, but again, I think that gives you a context. Anything else? Councilor Phillips, you still have your hand up?
I do. I just a new thing. Thank you, Chair Clark. And again, thank you for this process and the update. This is just a comment. I mean, I feel like a couple comments maybe. The data that we're hearing and the powerful statements within the packet, certainly seem to be what I'm hearing as a counselor in my part of Salem. So this data seems, pretty accurate. It doesn't seem wild or anything like that. So that's good. And then in terms of like the speeding, I think it was in this process that I learned that the state of Oregon spends the least per capita of any state in the country on enforcement of speeding. I mean, maybe staff could speak to that because that was like an aha moment that I had not heard before.
I don't have any data that I've seen that says that, but I certainly, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, because that's what I hear time and again. I went to a safety conference a year ago and Portland Police had the same sort of problem of not having sufficient resources to do speeding or any kind of traffic enforcement. They just don't have the resources. So what you just said doesn't surprise me.
That's what we heard from ODOT.
Yeah.
They were giving a presentation, they came.
Oh, okay.
As a follow-up though, Councilor Phillips, can I piggyback on that thought?
Yeah.
Recently, legislation was passed to allow more cities to be able to do red light cameras. Are other states as stingy with that as Oregon has been up until now? Where we've been denied the opportunity to even engage in that kind of like red light running and green light speed cameras? I mean, the state of Oregon was like, oh no, you all can't do it until now. It's 2024.
I think I've seen some data about around half the states have it. Maybe it's more than half have red light cameras. I can look that up. I think I've.
Commissioner? Do you have a comment on that?
Everybody's
I just-
tired of people on my bumper too. Wish I could put a light on top and give them a ticket. No, yeah, but you go to other states, and I went on a road trip in June. As soon as I got across the Oregon border, people were going 90. And the speed limit's 80 on the freeway in Idaho. I just think our public safety people are just so stressed trying to react to situations. They're not able to, once in a while you'll see a Salem motorcycle traffic team, probably you will see it next week with schools starting. They'll set up in some school zones and stuff, but we just need more of that. And you've talked to your chief, they're short-staffed, our guys are short-staffed, and trying to keep a traffic team together when you're reacting to calls out there, it's really difficult. Yeah, we had I don't know, one I think died Friday, 2 16-year-olds going up the canyon and were passing people that were doing 65 miles an hour and just felt like they were standing and they went off the cliff. How do you, you're not supposed to have another person in your car. He just got his driver's license.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's sad stuff. And, yeah.
Driver's ed.
Fortunately, some youth learn the hard way easily. Some don't make it. It's sad. I have to go.
All right.
I know you had one more bits of information too, right? So
Yeah.
I got it, 1:30.
Okay. Good to hear. Also quorum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're still at 5.
You don't need to vote.
Oh, Anna had to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
No more.
No more voting. Thank you, Commissioner. So, Director Carney? Who's got the raised hand?
Trevor and
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Director Carney, then back to Counselor Phillips.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Clark. Just looking at page 20 of this report, which is page 56 in our packets, looking at the response to the survey by zip code, which apparently people were happy to share, unlike household income. That might be just give SKATS staff some tips on where we need to really focus outreach efforts for something like a community sentiment survey, because you can see really strong representation in 97301 right here, and 97302, and then our numbers are more than in half for every other zip code beneath that, with a lot of East Salem 97305 and 97317. Really not having the opportunity to tell their story here or raise their concerns. And I think we have some challenging transportation infrastructure out there for people, and I would like to hear from them.
Can I follow up on that? With this, because this is just raw data, to tell the story, can we show the proportionality of population
That'd be great.
in those zip codes? And then the proportionality of the count to see if we're getting something that's pretty similar, like if 97302 is 30% of the response and about 30% of the population, all right, we hit it.
Totally.
So,
That's such a good idea. Yeah.
See if that tells the story a little bit clearer. Would that be a data that we could put with that, just to tell that story?
Probably could, just so you know that some of those zip codes kind of beyond probably where we were sending postcards, things like that. So,
And I think that's, yeah, and that would also tell a story too, like, okay, this is not an area zip code. This is somebody from far away that for some reason felt the need to comment.
yeah.
Oh, and then we're losing people pretty fast.
I will comment.
But Counselor Phillips, real quick.
Try to be fast. I really appreciate Member Carney's comments in the chat that kind of highlight the data, even in the packet, in terms of we are 50 out of 50 states in terms of funding for patrol officers and safety enforcement, which, I mean, I think the getting more flexibility and funding for alternatives, since we don't have funding for that, makes sense. But at some point, we probably got to increase, spending on patrol officers itself. While we also look at, do we need to pull people over right then and there, or can they get a ticket in the mail? I mean, I'm all for creative solutions that work, but we've got to do something. I mean, like we're last place, and I also hear speeding is probably top 1 or 2 things that I hear. So it's just something I get confused when people don't want to spend money on policing, but then they're like, oh, but the speeding isn't enforced, and I don't know what to do with that.
Right there with you. Yeah. Measure 50. Okay, it's good for us to then take to the legislature going, these police are not freebies. Okay, anything else? All right, I saw Mayor Horning needs to go pretty quick here, so let's get to, if you have additional insights, please get those emailed to Mike and his team. And thank you very much for the work being done on this. Let's get to our tip modifications.
Okay, this is informational items. Some of these will look familiar from last month that were approved by the policy committee. Some of the other ones were administrative amendments, and having a few more of those right now because we're getting ready to turn over to the new federal fiscal year on October 1st. So things like the Center Street Bridge push back or slipped the right-of-way phase to 25 because they're weren't going to be able to operate that before the end of 2024. The next 3 were amendments that last month. One was a description update to the transit formula project, cancellation of striping and marking improvements, and then a new project for wrong way driving treatments along I-5 and 569, which is Beltline in Eugene. One of those projects that spans multiple MPO areas. And then the last couple were a reduction in transit funds for ODOT Transit's 2024 funding for urbanized transit spending. And then the last one was moving some of the federal funds between phases for the McGillcrest project. I think that was at the request of FHWA, so that we had some of the raised funds on the preliminary engineering phase and not just the construction phase.
Okay, any questions on any of the tip amendments? Okay, let's go on then to, we'll just kind of wrap up here. We've got informational items for your calendars. You see the planning grid at the end of the agenda. So you see what's coming up here for and we just heard what's going to be happening with the Metropolitan Transportation Safety Action Plan. We have the Oregon Transportation Travel Study. Mike, you put that on there for the phase 3.
Yeah, it's completed. So all the survey has been done.
Check that box. And then Safe Routes to School, looking forward to a very robust program, and encourage folks to get a hold of their legislators to encourage ongoing and more robust funding for the 2nd largest school district in the state to have 2 amazing people, but there are only 2. So put a plug in for getting this fully funded and even more robust for our students at Salem-Keizer. And then the next OTC meeting is on October 10th in Bend. Our next policy committee will be on September 24th right here, and next TAC meeting is September 10th. And then we have an OMPOC date.
Me too. I was just thinking about that. We should probably notice that. So it's going to be a hybrid meeting in Bend. I just need to look at the date again. I think it was
October 4th.
Yeah. October 4th.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, October 4th, so
Sadie, are you gonna be able to do that as vice chair? We check your calendar. If not, we'll see if we can get Lyle.
Yeah, let me take a look. October.
We have the option of travel or in person, so.
I mean, Bend is so nice though.
I know.
Yeah, right. What
it's a
time?
9 o'clock meeting, so
Until,
factor that in. 9 to about 2 is
Yeah.
generally.
yeah, I may be able to attend.
Okay,
Yeah, especially if I do so virtually, though in person would be nice on October 4th.
it's just really great to connect up with people
Mhm.
and also to be able to tour some of the things that different cities are doing and projects and also challenges. That's one of the great things about OMPAC is it brings people from all the different sizes and locations of MPOs across the state and has built a lot of collaboration over the years. So, all right, that is all we've got. Anything else that we need to cover, Mike?
No, like I said, the safety plan will be here in September. We have a pretty full agenda for September, so we're working on that agenda, the October agenda. Well, we're busy.
Definitely getting stuff done. Anything else from PC members? All right, the time is 1:32. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.